Hello, Dave.
Hello, Matt. How's it going?
All right. I'm doing okay.
You said a mouthful here. Is it September already?
Exactly.
Here we are. So, are we recording?
We are recording.
Okay, good. First question I have for you. Do you have any reports of the Can 9s arriving where they're supposed to?
I have not heard anything yet.
Okay.
I will, on tomorrow's post, I'll put a, hey, if anybody's gotten theirs, just, shout real loud.
Yeah, I would appreciate it since I think we did not too badly in terms of the fulfillment, in terms of, it was about 2 months from the time that the Kickstarter ended to the point where we actually shipped all of them out, and hopefully they will be arriving.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Jen Giacomo had a question we didn't answer last time that we said we were going to get to this time. So, of course, we start with Jeff Seiler and his phone question. We both know he sent one. Yeah, he was a little late getting it done. The question just came in this morning. Was that just this morning? Yes, I think that was just this morning. And recorded it off of the answering service, and Rolly turned it into a digital file. And if you haven't gotten it by now, you should be getting it reasonably soon.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, it's Jeff.
Hello, Dave.
My question for
Hello, Matt.
September
How's it
is
going?
All right.
related to the book, The Last Day.
I'm doing okay.
After having read that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times,
You said a mouthful here. Is it
one thing I
September
noticed was
already?
the
Exactly.
verisimilitude of old age
Here we are.
that Cerebus goes
So,
through
are we recording?
throughout the book.
We are recording.
So, of course, he dies.
Okay, good.
And I just wondered
first
if
question
you
I
had
have for you.
if you're drawing
Do
in
you have any
on
reports
any
of the Can 9
personal,
arriving where they're supposed to?
I have not heard anything yet.
to that. I know you did that a little
Okay.
bit in other parts of the book, or maybe a lot.
I will,
Um,
on tomorrow's post, I'll put a, hey, if
Inspired
anybody's
Minds
gotten theirs, just,
And then you can cut
shout
it off
real
here.
loud.
I would appreciate it since, so the answer to, I think we did not too badly in terms of the fulfillment, in terms of, about 2 months, the aging process, and the Kickstarter into the last day, to the point where we actually shipped all of them out. Personal experiences, hopefully they will be arriving. Excuse me, that I would have used
Okay.
as raw material. All right. For that part of the last day. Jen, I remember when the question we didn't answer Uncle Jimmy that we said we were going to get this time in the hospital. So of course we start with Jeff Seiler when that was specifically. You both know he sent one. Yeah, he was a little late getting it done. Anyway, question just came in this morning. That just this morning. They wanted to do an operation, and I think on it recorded it and off of the answering service. It was going to result in him having to actually turn it into a digital file bag. And if you haven't gotten it by now, you just should be getting it completely out of line as far as he was concerned.
Okay.
So you have to kind of respect that. Although my Aunt Ina was completely appalled that he wasn't going to do this thing that was going to save his life, because it was just too undignified for him. But to me, you have to respect somebody who just hospital, and he'd already made the decision that no, he wasn't going to have the operation, and consequently, it was really just a matter of time until he was going to die. And he basically stopped eating. He would take liquids, but he was just a completely uncooperative patient. And I was coming back from a convention, and I believe that the hospital was in Mississauga, which isn't too far from Pearson Airport. So I made a special point of arranging with Thermal Limousine to pick me up at the airport from the convention I was coming back from, and then drive me over to the hospital so that I could visit with my Uncle Jimmy, who is the older brother of my father's mother, so my paternal grandmother. And I do remember that visiting with him, a couple of things. One of the things was him asking me, how did you get here? How did you get to the hospital? And me going, limousine. Because he knew how I traveled. I don't drive, so that's if I got somewhere that far out of Kitchener, that's how I got there. He goes like, how's that? How did you get here? I went, by limousine, and I realized that he was trying to impress the other guy in the semi-private room that he was in with the fact that his grandnephew came to see him in a limousine. And I thought, man, oh man, you made the decision not to continue living, and you're still trying to impress somebody just with the fact that your grandnephew came to the hospital in a limousine. But relative to Jeff's question, while we were talking, I was sitting reasonably close to him because he was pretty hard of hearing by that point. And he had some chocolate milk, and I remember him belching, and I could smell the chocolate milk, but not only the chocolate milk, but I could smell death in his breath. And it's like I had never smelled it before, but it was very, very distinctive. And there was no question in my mind that that's what I was smelling. And I don't think he lived more than 4 or 5 days after I visited him. The other experience was watching my maternal grandfather, Dave Reed, die, for whom I was named. He was in hospital, but he was in a coma. He had his liver and kidneys shut down, and basically we were all at my grandmother's place, and I went, well, this is crazy. We came all the way down from Kitchener. I didn't come here to visit with my grandmother. My grandfather's dying, a few blocks away. So I'll take a cab, or if somebody wants to give me a lift over there. So my parents and my uncle Cliff, who was Dave Reed's son, my uncle, went over to the hospital. My mother and I actually went into the room and stayed there until he died. And that was my first experience with actually watching somebody die, the whole death rattle and whatever else. So system, and that explained why the people that I saw in dialysis, why are there so many amputees in the dialysis unit? That's the explanation. People who can't quit smoking and can't quit drinking, even though they're on dialysis. And essentially, same thing that happened to my mother. She got gangrene in big toe of her foot, and that's just what happens if you don't follow the instructions. And gangrene definitely has a specific death smell to it. And it got to the point where she was at Grand River Hospital. The moment that I walked into Grand River Hospital, I could smell the gangrene. I think anybody who's been in a hospital can smell gangrene. They just don't know that that's what it is because it's masked with disinfectant and whatnot. So that ties in with my answer to Jeff, which is that the last day, yes, it is about aging, and it is about the loss of capacity, and but it's far more about Cerebus's personal last day, in extremis. We're all going to have one. I mean, we all have a last day, and no one knows when they wake up on any given day, is my last day or is this not my last day? But it is fated to be that way. So that's far more what I was documenting in the last day was you've read all of these big chunks of Cerebus's life, and that was 15 volumes ago. Now it's volume 16, and is the result of the bad decision making that Cerebus progressively made through his life. This is how you end up. You basically narrow down all of your options, and all of your choices just say, well, okay, as promised, alone, unmourned, and unloved, but you're also going to die completely constipated because you're so embarrassed about defecating in your drawers and having to wear a diaper that you're eating massive amounts of cheese so that you won't defecate. There's a good example of Cerebus's brand of decision making. It's like, well, okay, that works theoretically, but it's one of those, how can you possibly see this as a solution? There's got to be a much better way to do this, but Cerebus was always the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, where I am and where I'm determined to go to, no matter how sensible it is. Coincidentally, this ties in with my commentary in Remastered Cerebus Number 2, which we are getting very, very close to having the Kickstarter launch. Talking about being physically incarnated, your soul encased in flesh, to your original state as a free-floating spirit form. It's a universal truth. I mean, to me, going under, quote, going under, unquote, transit point from one nature of existence to another is the structure of the universe, really the underpinning of God's clockwork mechanism. So the last day isn't just about Cerebus's personal last day, although it is about Cerebus's last day. And that transit point, as can be seen from the prologue of the last day, the pseudo-scripture that I did, it's also about the last day of the planet that Cerebus is on, and the solar system's last day, of which that planet is a part. All planets die. Like all planets die, all solar systems die. They're as finite as human bodies. They just last billions of years longer. But planet Earth will one day reach a transit point where it will change from what it is now, a spinning orbital cosmological sphere, into a compressed lump of dark matter. When the sun goes nova and collapses into itself and us with it, or goes nova and incinerates everything. It's to me the same process. It's you either are a liberated spirit and go on from there, or that's what you transit to is from your physically incarnated to your spirit self, to your spirit self collapsed within dark matter. It's difficult to understand these things, but it's certainly the distinction between the monotheist and the atheist, because to an atheist, death is death. This is where everything comes to an end. Whereas, as a monotheist, like I say, you understand it as two different states of existence with a transit point in between them. And, these primary, I will have a transit point, you will have a transit point, planet Earth will have a transit point, the sun will have a transit point, the solar system will have a transit point. But that's just one level. That's of physical existence. Let's see if I can try and explain this. There are constructed transit points in the sense that something is built, and simultaneously in the sense that something has an inherent nature it has acquired or assumed through longevity. And the example I'm going to use here, and this gets kind of intricate, but when do Jeff's questions not get intricate? Years as an example, just what we call a year. This is 2021, which implies that there was a January 1st, year zero, which also implies that there was a January 1st, year 100, just as there was a January 1st, 2000. For 1,000 years, by universal agreement, as close as we ever get on planet Earth to universal agreement, the year started with a 1. Starting when the year 999 ended. clinging to something for 1,000 years is metaphysically potent. One isn't two, and two isn't one. So January 1st, 2000 was a transit point from one 1,000-year-long state of existence to a brand new state of existence. A year after that happens, it's January 1st, 2001. And that's another transit point from the 20th to the 21st century. We have 1,000 years that's ended and 1 year that has begun the next 1,000 years. And we can't conceive, we can't even picture that macro-micro relationship. Our third eye can't iris open that far. 1,000 years and 1 year. We don't have remotely near the human experience personally of 1,000 years. We know a year, but we sure as heck don't know 1,000 years. Bear with me on this. 100 years and 1 year, that's different. It's like the 100 years is beyond our reach, but a man's reach always needs to exceed his grasp. And 100 years relative to my 65 years, yeah, I have kind of a grasp of that. I know what 1 year is, and I can sort of picture what 100 years is. So part of all of us, again, this is a rare instance of universal consciousness on planet Earth. So part of all of us that's attuned to God's macrocosmic / microcosmic clockwork mechanism that we inhabit understands January 1st, 2000 to January 1st, 2001 as a microcosm of the beginning of year numbering. Again, in a lot because we've transitioned from one state to another, and we have a larger unconscious understanding of what it is that we're experiencing. That 1 year, the January 1st, 2000 to January 1st, 2001, represents microcosmically the year 0 to the year 100 AD. Like we understand that at a specific level. January 1st, 2001 to January 1st, 2002 represents 100 AD to 200 AD. January 1st, 2002 to January 1st, 2003 represents 200 AD to 300 AD. So, again, by universal consensus, what the number of the year is pretty close to universal on planet Earth. By universal consensus, but unconscious consensus, we understand that we're enacting all over again all of the years since the birth of Christ. January 1st to January 1st, 2015, January 1st, 2016 is the 1500s. January 1st, 2017 to January 1st, 2018 is the 1700s. So we also understand, I'm finally getting to the point here, so we also understand unconsciously and microcosmically we're about to catch up to ourselves. January 1st, 2019 to January 1st, 2020 is the 1900s. The point where we finally caught up to ourselves microcosmically was the middle of March 2020, when the first universal lockdown took place. Sylvie again into what we now have become and are completely unfamiliar with. Well, say something, Matt.
To quote the eminent philosopher Martin McFly, heavy.
Well, thank you. Well said.
I mean,
well
that's a perspective that I hadn't had, and now I never will not have.
Well, good. See, that's what you call your meme. Are you the one that calls them memes? Your whole family calls them different things, don't they?
The kid says I say it wrong, and she gets real annoyed about it when I say it wrong. So now I say it wrong just to annoy her because I'm a dad, and that's how you do this thing, you know.
That's right.
Janice hates being called Jan. Just absolutely hates it, which is fine because we don't call her that. But we know she hates it, so when she's being annoying and we want to annoy her back, it's, hey, Jan, and she, like, literally will stop whatever she's doing to stare at me for 5 seconds, trying to become Cyclops and burn my face off with her laser vision, and then realizes it's not going to happen and goes on with her life.
So, who is it that what are the other ones? Who says meme in your family? I
say meme. I'm trying to remember. Janice says it quote unquote correctly, which is meme. I also say mem. It all depends on who I'm talking to and what my brain is processing it as. Because I always read it as, you know, silent E at the end. If I was smart, I'd just start calling them M&Ms and see how many people go, wait, where's the candy?
Okay, so there you go, Jeff. That's your answer to the question this time. Not really about the aging process, more about in extremis in all of its various forms, and most particularly the transit point. If you want to read a few more observations on that,